In today's lesson, we're going to be working with writing expressions. Now, these are the basic expressions. Most of these will be one-step expressions. So when we're going through this, there's some important words that you should try to remember. So to be able to tell if an expression is addition, so I'm going to put my plus sign up here, words that would help you with knowing if something is a plus or an addition expression, you would need to know some famous words. For instance, you would need to know some would mean addition. You would need to know in all. We could keep probably listing them. If you remember the words on the wall, we have some, in all, total, increase. One that's a little bit tricky would be more than. I know when we're adding, the commutative property allows us to switch the order and you'll still get the same sum. But sometimes when you're writing expressions, you want to try to write it in the correct order. So if I were to give you this expression, 7, this would be a verbal expression, 7 more than a number. The algebraic expression that you would write to go with this, well, you would have to come up with a variable. The variable is the letter, the unknown, for a number because we don't know what the number is. We can't just make up our own number. We have to actually come up with a variable. The most common variables that are used are the letter n and x. So I'm going to use n for this one. I know I want 7 more than a number. So to write that expression algebraically, you would start with a number, which is our n. We're using n in place of the number, and we would add 7 to it. So 7 more than a number would actually look like n plus 7, because we want 7 more than what we had. So you would take what you had and add 7 to it. You might also see this same expression written as the sum of a number and 7. That's another verbal expression that would go along with n plus 7. Another thing you could say for that would be the total. Instead of sum, write the total of a number and 7. How much would it be in all? But the more than is usually the trickier one for addition because you do want to be careful with how you write that. There's more verbal expressions for subtraction. For subtraction, you would use words such as decreased. A number is decreased by another number. You might use difference if you're trying to find the difference. That is the answer to a subtraction problem. A very tricky one that's used a lot is the word less than. This is just like the more than one. This one is tricky. So if I have the expression 7 is less than a number, what would the algebraic expression look like? Again, you're going to have to stop and say, okay, what am I going to use in place of a number? I'm going to use the letter n. You don't have to use n. It's just a very common variable that is used. So once again, you want 7 less than this. So you want to start with the number and you want to take 7 from it. So 7 is less than a number. 7 is going to be less than what it was I started with. 7 is less than a number. Starting with n, and I want 7 less than that. You might also see a number that would give you the same exact variable as, or algebraic expression as this. You could say a number decreased by 7 would also be n minus 7. The difference of a number and 7 would also be n minus 7. So that's one of the tricky ones for subtraction, is that word less than. And again, it is on the chart on your reteaching 2-1. Some key phrases for multiplication. Phrases for multiplication would be product. We know that product is an answer to a multiplication problem. Another word is each. For instance, if I have tables and there's 5 people at each table. If I have 5 people at each table, and there is n tables, how many people would that be? Well, if I have 5 people at each table and there's n tables, I want to take 5 and times it by n. That would tell me how many people. So if I had 2 tables, 5 times 2 would be 10. If I had 5 tables, 5 times 5 would be 25. If I had 10 tables, I'd had 50 people. So that word each also means to multiply. So if I have 5n, you have to remember we don't write 5 times n. We don't use the x when we're using variables. A lot of times you can just write the number and the variable. Some people like to put a dot between the number and the variable. Some people like to put parentheses around them, which whatever works for you, but do not use an X to show multiplication when you're using variables. Okay, so product, each, double, all of those words would also mean to multiply. For division, some of the words that you would want to know for division would be like quotient. We know that quotient is the answer to a division problem. How would that be used? Find the quotient of n and 7. That would definitely just mean to take n divided by 7. Divide it into, if you're dividing something into pieces, if you're dividing into, so let's say I have 7 divided into n. That means I'm going to write n, and I'm going to divide it by 7. I'm going to take 7. If I were to do long division, it would look like this, n divided by 7. We just don't write expressions using the bracket. We use the division sign instead of the bracket. So take your time with these and think them through for reteaching 2-1. Writing expressions, make sure you look for those keywords, circle, underline those keywords, and then think about what it is they're asking you to do.